Okay, Gary.
Okay. Yeah, I'm back.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, folks. Borrow one of them hard questions you got.
Yeah, does anybody have a question? If you don't ask it now, we're not going to let you ask it later because we're going to shut it down. Okay. Well, while you're thinking of your questions, I'll share a story with you. Back in the war, I'm kidding. We had to show you how do I say it, obscure my thinking is. We had a guy go to court. And, these courts, they're just like slot machines. They just make the counties and the cities, they just make them tons and tons of money. Well, we get there, and the guy, I don't remember what the ticket was for. I do remember, but I don't want to tell you because then you may know the guy. So it was either speeding, running a red light, swerving, or something to that effect. Anyways, he gets to court. And, they go through the rigmarole, and I do my thing. So anyways, the police gets up there, they always get on the stand. And, we asked the name. And one thing I found out is you never get ugly with them. So we were very kind. Officer Smith, I want to make sure it's on the record that I thank you for your keeping us safe. Thank you for your job. I'm not sure I can do it. Your bravery. And so we're smeared it on pretty thick. And then, the prosecuting attorney says, well, you can't ask him any questions because he's not an attorney. He doesn't have to know the law and blah, blah, blah. So we get all that out. So the question we asked was, is this a good, how do I say it? Is this a good understanding of your qualifications or your job? Would you say you're in law enforcement? So the cop looks over at the prosecutor. He said, you can answer that. He said, yes, I am. So the first thing we said was, man, I'm so glad. So you admit you're in law enforcement. What law do you enforce? Then he looks over there, and they couldn't believe what was said. So we're standing there, and we're waiting, and he's kind of fumbling around. I said, okay, would you go ahead and say that you don't know what law you enforce because you haven't answered the question? And he just spitters and sputters around. So the question we asked was, okay, would you also say that you then, if there's law that's, let's say, from the supreme to the nothing, would the supreme law of the land be the law as a law enforcement agent you would enforce? So would you put it, in other words, if there's a supreme law and a no supreme law, which one's the most important? It got so hilarious. The prosecutor didn't even know what to do. So what ended up happening is the judge called the guy up and basically says, what do you think you're doing? He said, I'm defending. What do you mean, what am I doing? I'm defending. Basically, what they did was they told him to sit down and blah, blah, blah. And at the end of they didn't do it right then because then everybody would have done it. At the end, he said, we decided to go ahead and dismiss your case. So we had the case dismissed on the grounds. The policeman said, no, the police officer, rather than getting rude or mad at him, basically said he's in law enforcement and he doesn't know what law he enforces. Because he can't say he enforces the supreme law of the land because that would be the Constitution. He can't say he enforces the Texas Constitution or the United States Constitution. He couldn't say Texas law because Texas law says transportation code says that it's for commercial use only. So in other words, where the problem comes is what are they going to do on a case like that? Does that make sense to anybody?
Yes, it does, Gary.
So,
too much sense. Yeah,
right.
That makes too much sense, and they don't deal in facts; they deal in policy.
Okay, but see, that's not what he said. He did not say. See, where we got him was he did not say, I'm a what is it? I'm not in policy enforcement. He said law enforcement. So, see, all of a sudden now, by us doing what we're doing, they don't know what to do with it. See where I'm coming from?
I do. You paint him in a box there. Once you said law enforcement, what law?
Correct. So all he has to do is tell us what law, so that we can help him. So we can help him with the in other words, how do you plea? I'm going to plea whatever it is I have to plea. We don't care what it is, as long as the whole thing comes out. Anyways, what we're trying to do is we're trying to give an alternative to you, to give you a thought pattern that's different. In other words, if you go to the same court with the same argument, to the same judge, with the same thing every time, they eventually understand what you're doing, and then they get their arms around it. So when we show up, it's so bizarre, they don't have a clue what's going on, how it's going on, what's going on, when it's going on, or none of that stuff. They don't understand any of it. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to give you something you can do that maybe is outside of what they're used to seeing. Does that make sense to anybody?
Right. They've got all their Patriot questions all lined up, and if they don't fit in there, they don't know what to do if you don't fit their talking points.
Correct. Now, the guy that's talking, I'm going to ask you a scenario. You have a 32-ounce glass on the cabinet. I put 16 ounces of water in it. Tell me what you have.
Two-thirds of a gallon.
Okay, 2/3 of a gallon.
3/4 of a gallon. 3/4 of a gallon.
So you have 16 ounces is 3/4 of a gallon.
No, 32 and.
No, you have a 32-ounce glass on the cabinet.
Oh,
I put 16 ounces of water in that 32-ounce glass. What do you have? See, you're overthinking it, guy. See how you're overthinking it? This is how they get us. So what do you have?
16 ounces.
I'm trying to say that again.
16 ounces of water in a 32-ounce glass.
Incorrect. I have a full glass. I have 16 ounces of water and 16 ounces of air, so the glass is full. See, that's what I would tell them. But what we're telling them is we're saying, well, the glass is half full. or we'll say the glass is half empty. You got to understand something. The arguments that we're in, this is not right or wrong, law or not law, up or down. It's a mind screw. What they're trying to do is they're trying to think. So if you say to them, well, the glass is half full, they're going to take all the half empty questions and lay them aside. Then they're only going to ask you half full questions. Okay, now let me ask you, the guy that was just talking to me, can I ask you a personal question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, are you a conservative or are you a liberal?
Depends on your definition of the word.
Okay, I didn't ask you what my definition is. My definition is, do you have 2 eyes or 3? No, my definition does not matter. I'm asking you a question. Are you a conservative or are you a liberal?
It depends on the circumstances.
Okay, so that's fine. So you don't know. So what we're going to do is then we're going to ask you questions until the cows come home. See what I'm saying? Now, if you were to say you're a conservative, we'll lay all the liberal questions aside, and I'm only going to ask you conservative questions. See, if you say you're a conservative, then we're a liberal. See, now, ask me the same question. I'm just going to show you how I answer this stuff. This is what pisses them off. Ask me the same question.
Terry, are you a conservative or a liberal?
Yes, I am. Okay, Your Honor, since the guy went silent, I want that struck him from the record. In other words, what else do we have? See, in other words, I don't give him time to come back. See? So what's happening in this thing with the police, he's on the stand, the questions are so obvious and so, how do I say it? I don't, they can't understand what I'm saying. See? So what ends up happening is, that what happens is, see, what we're trying to do is we're trying to overthink this. I'm too stupid. I'm just one of these guys that are so dumb. I'm as dumb as a bag of hammers. So I don't know how to answer it. I listen to the question and I answer the question that's asked. So the question is, if I put 16 ounces of water in a 32-ounce glass, what do you got? You got a full glass. How can you have a full glass? Well, it doesn't have air in it? Well, yeah. Well, it's got 16 ounces of air and 16 ounces of water. Wouldn't that be full? No. Okay, then what would it be? See, in other words, you ask me a question, I'm going to answer it. Doesn't that make sense? So when we got the cop on the stand, instead of saying, you sons of bitches, you no good garbage dump, you do nothing but screw us, you prick. I think the same thing as you do. But see, I come up with the idea. Let's see what happens. Man, officer, I want to tell you, thank you for keeping us safe. I can go to bed at night, put my head on the pillow, knowing you're patrolling, or one of your great kind are patrolling, keeping the neighborhood safe. But before we go, I got this alleged ticket by you that says I was doing 522 miles an hour in a 30 zone. I'm assuming that's speeding. Would you agree with me that you're in law enforcement? I'll ask him a couple of questions before that. What do you do? And like I said, every time he answers, he looked at the prosecutor, and the prosecutor would give him well, I don't have to know that. Then the prosecutor would say, well, he's not an attorney. Okay, I understand. So instead of saying, well, he's not an attorney, then what's the prick writing me a ticket for you if you don't? See, I don't get into all that. Oh, that makes sense. I want you to understand I'm not trying to pin him down on anything. I just want to make sure we're on the same page. There's my glossary page again. I'm going to make our glossaries be the same. So I ask him a couple of questions so that he gets used to me asking questions, and then I ask him, would you agree to me that you're in law enforcement? Now, what cop, police officer, whatever you call them, would say no to that? None of them. They're all going to say, yes, I'm in law enforcement. Wow, thank God, no one we're so safe. Before we go any further, what law do you enforce? And then I shut my mouth, because now the fun begins. Because, well, he looks at the prosecutor. The prosecutor said, wait a second. He said he was in law enforcement. Then my question is, does he enforce the law of gravity? See? No. So then he's not in law enforcement. In other words,
gravity is a theory.
What's that?
Gravity is a theory.
No, the law of gravity. If you fall off the roof, the law of gravity, you'll fall down. Not necessarily hit the ground, but you'll fall down.
Can I make a comment, Kerry?
Absolutely.
This is from our attorney, Sam Dixon. He's probably one of our most scholarly got in the South down here. Speaks at Jared Taylor's American Renaissance all the time. And I was stirring a whole bunch of the pot up, talking about policy and these they're using statutes and codes that are not actually law. And Sam Dixon came in and he said, your rights, the Bill of Rights are law.
Okay. Now, what you're trying to tell me is that I don't care. See, I don't care, to be honest with you. That makes me no difference because the prosecuting attorney is not on the stand. The prosecuting attorney did not give me a ticket. Who gave me the ticket?
Guy on the street.
No, sir. The police officer gave me the ticket. A man on the street would be a bum sleeping under a tree. Could be a guy walking his dog. You've got to understand something. I'm an asshole for that. See, what you're trying to do is you're trying to give me an answer that doesn't exist. So the police officer gave me the ticket. The police officer said he was in law enforcement. Okay, I lay tile for a living. So if you ask me a question, well, what kind of tile do you think I got? Well, I have no idea. I put sheetrock on the floor. See, that doesn't make any sense. So the question is, are you in law enforcement? Yes. Well, if you're in law enforcement, if you're in it, wouldn't you know it? Yeah. Then what law do you enforce? Then I shut my mouth and watch them come apart. This is not about tickets and stuff. I'm just telling you what we're doing, what we did, and a lot of us are trying to outthink it. We're trying to use the same argument over and over and over and over again, and it's not working because the patriot argument is, well, I'm a sovereign, and because I'm a sovereign, I've got the Bill of Rights behind me. I don't care about the Bill of Rights. I do care about them, but not here. Why? Because let him tell me he doesn't. Well, no, we don't. We use statutes and codes. Good. So the statutes and codes, is that the law? Yes. Well, the traffic code says right here on this page that the traffic code is for commercial use only. I got it. I'm not going to get into this. Well, the traffic code isn't part of the Constitution. This isn't an Article 3 court. He's not an Article 3 judge. I could care less. See, that doesn't bother me. What I'm trying to do is let me show him. He's telling me he's in law enforcement. What law do you enforce? Well, I enforce the Texas law. Perfect. Why then did you give me a ticket for driving down the street in a city and it says ordinance number? That is the ordinance. Well, yeah, but see, let them define what they're saying. In other words, there's my glossary page at work. Doesn't that make sense or not?
That's a classic debate tactic. Call them and make them look, challenge them to prove what they're saying.
Okay, now, I'm going to make a statement now. Don't be offended by this, but you're the dumbest, ignorantest individual on this phone call. Now, you defend that.
I don't think so.
If you don't think so, okay. You don't think so? That's fine. Now, say the same thing. Tell everybody do the same thing here. Tell me the same thing.
You're incompetent. You shouldn't be doing what you're doing.
Okay, no problem. What proof do you have? Okay, Your Honor.
My opinion.
Since he's well, the opinions don't count here. The law counts. See, what we're trying to do is we're trying to defend. You understand? We don't have to defend. If they make the accusation, they have to. I'm sorry, we don't have to prove. We only have to defend. So you're the most ignorant individual on the phone. You're the most ignorant individual on the phone. Now go ahead and defend that.
What proof do you have that I'm the most ignorant?
See how simple that is? Well, I don't have any proof. Well, Your Honor, I want that question struck from the record, because why would he say something? Why would he sit here and lie to you? Why would he come here and make that statement? Why would he see now I throw everything on them. I don't have to prove anything. I'm in court because they gave me a court date. They said that I was speeding. They said that I couldn't drive that speed on that street at that time. Not a problem. See?
Absolutely. The best tactic in the world is make them prove whatever they're saying.
Okay, see? Because they made the accusation. Doesn't that make sense to you?
Yep.
See, instead, when I said you're the most ignorant individual on the phone, well, no, there's somebody else. I don't think so. I think there's somebody else out here stupider than me. I'll bet you there's somebody here that's, I don't care. I don't care. I don't care what they say about me. It makes me no difference. So what we're doing is we're going into the courtroom. They ask us, how do you plead? The first thing we say is we plead innocent until proven guilty. The judge always says we don't have that plea here. Then we don't say nothing. The judge comes back and says you have to be guilty, not guilty, or nolo contendere. Okay, Your Honor? What do you do if I'm not none of those? Well, how do you plead? A 49-year-old black man. Well, you're not one of those either. Well, what difference does it make? I'm not none of those either. Man, it's hilarious. Okay, I'm a 42-year-old prostitute. But you're older than 42. So what? I'm not none of those three, so I figured I wasn't one of those either. I didn't know we were telling the truth. Do we have to tell the truth here? Yes. Okay, then I'm innocent until proven guilty. That's what I am. You asked me to tell you what I was, and I'm telling you. Well, we can't use that. Oh, then I just sit down. I'm done. See, I'm not going to stand there and debate him. He's got all the power right now. So then I'm going to say I object. He has to put in some kind of a what? He's going to have to say, well, I'm going to put in a plea for you. Go ahead, I'm going to object. Because I've already told you I'm not none of those three. Without fail, the judge always says, well, innocent and not guilty is the same. And go ahead and put it in for me, thank you. And I'll let the judge put it in for me. Once he says I'm not guilty, I stand up and say, then see you later, bud. An innocent man does not have to defend himself in a court of law. See ya. Because he just did it. He just said it. He just told the court I was innocent. See, I don't stand there and argue with him on a negative. I cannot fight a negative. Doesn't that make sense?
It does.
See, I don't do that.
They're putting a burden on you. You got to accept it.
You can't. The burden doesn't have to be on me. Now, let's reverse that. Now, if I owe you $400, who's got a problem?
That's a good one. That's mutual.
No, sir, you're incorrect. No, sir, you're incorrect. If I owe you $400, I could care less. I'm going to tell you, you want your $400? Yes, okay. I'll be in Corsicana tomorrow at 3 o'clock. See you there. If you're not there, I'll be back in Texas in 7 months. I'll pay you then. You better be there because I guarantee if you're not there, you ain't getting your money. How does that bother me? If you owe me $400, I have the problem. So the IRS says, well, you can't do that. That's frivolous. What's frivolous? It doesn't matter. I said it was frivolous, so it's frivolous. So I'm going to immediately get into the IRS's pocket. As soon as I get into their pocket, they got a problem. I don't have a problem anymore. You owe us $42,500. Yes, I might. That's a possibility. What's frivolous? We're not going to tell you. Then I'll go to the grave with your $42,000 that you say I owe. Thank you. See, I'm not going to stand there and argue with them. Well, it can't be frivolous because I don't get into all that. I could care less. See, I do the same thing with everything. Does that make sense?
It does. You're spinning it in such a manner that you don't go into whatever they're trying to lead you into.
Okay, and because of that, I'm not gonna stand here and fight with them about anything. And the reason for it is what we're trying to do is what you're trying to do. So you're trying to tell me that I have some kind of obligation to you when I don't have any obligation to you. No, they go back and ask you, I owe you $42,000. Who's got the problem?
The person that's missing the $32,000.
Well, I thought you said we had it equal. I thought you said we had it equally.
Well, you just argued your way out of that one. I don't know.
See, I could care less, dude. I don't care. See? And so I do everything.
I do know that, listening to Carl Lutz, he says, as long as you're making an attempt to make a payment, like $1 a month, then that's a requirement.
First of all, here's the problem with what you just said. You're telling me, then what I'm going to do is, I'm going to ask you a question. Will you answer it? Do you mind answering it?
Go ahead.
Okay. Is debt is debt? Would you agree to that?
Not necessarily. It depends.
Really? Okay. Then when is debt not debt?
Yeah.
Hello? When is debt not debt?
Whenever you're talking to the United States government,
No, sir. So in other words, what you're telling me, if I go borrow money from the bank, and that's not debt?
Yeah, I'm not going to go there, but you can say they cook the books. It depends on who your accountant is.
All right, now hold on a minute. Step back. If what you're saying is true, I can play debt with debt. I can play debt with the best of them. So here's what I'm going to do. I owe the IRS $42,000. Not a problem. I'm going to send them $68,000 for my pickup. Here's the payment on my pickup, buddy. Here's $68,000. Keep the change. See, they don't want to argue that with me. See, so the guy that's telling you that is full of manure, in my opinion, because first of all, you can't pay debt with debt. Period. Now, how much dirt is in the hole?
None.
Okay, how much dirt is in the hole?
None.
Okay, I'm going to take that dirt from the hole that there ain't none and put it in the dirt, put it in the other hole on the other side. How long will it take me to fill that other hole up with the dirt from the hole? Forever. It'll never get paid. Why? Therein lies the problem. There's the problem we have. So, what I'm trying to tell you is, I'm going to ask you another question. Do you fill out a 1040?
No.
Why?
Because it's illegal to do so.
No, it's not illegal. That's not true. No, sir. That's not true. So, since you're incorrect, I'll give you. Normally, I don't give a guy a second chance. Why do you not fill out a 1040?
I got to revert back to the same answer. I don't have a good answer for you.
I fill out a 1040.
You do?
This is Andrew. Yeah, I fill one out to reclaim whatever they've stolen over the years, and also to correct the record. Because
that's fine.
Yeah, company reports payments for labor as wages, and then I correct the record. And
that's fine. What you need to do is work until, and since they're going to do that, tell them you're married with 9 children. That way they'll take the least amount. But see, okay, the guy that was talking to me that said taxes were filing a 1040 was illegal. Are you in front of a computer and look something up for me?
I am not. I'm just a phone.
That's not a problem. Does anybody on here in front of a computer can look something up and we can read it, and I'll show you. I'm trying to give you a different way to see this and a different way to think about this so that when you're asked or pinched, you can give them the right question.
I'm in front of a computer.
Okay, put in Title 26, 60, 12, and only, I want you to read just the heading. When you pop up, come back on. All right. Does anybody else have a question? Now I'm going to ask a question. You can challenge the law, one particular law, in the beginning, in the middle, or at the end. What law is it? Okay.
Yeah.
Nobody knows?
Is this jurisdiction?
That is correct. So what other one is there?
Fraud.
Nope. Fraud initiate. Well, okay, then fraud. I'll say fraud. I'll give you that one. So we should only be arguing 2 arguments: fraud or jurisdiction. Not that we're a Texian, or not that we're a human being, or not that we can fly without an airplane, or not that the First Amendment protects me, or the Fifth, or what. See, because fraud and jurisdiction you can challenge at any time. So that's what we should stick with. So go back to my question, and when I asked the cop that, he says, well, I'm in law enforcement. What law do you enforce? If he doesn't know, then how does he know I was speeding? How do you know I was speeding? Well, the speed limit, wait a second. So then you do know what law it is. Now I can pin him to the floor. So in other words, if it says 35, what law would that be? You just said you didn't. Well, I don't know. Then how do you know? How do you know it's for me? How do you know it's not for the birds or whatever? I just become knucklehead. What I'm trying to tell you is we need to stop arguing that we can't win. The guy that looked at 26, 60, 12, did you get it looked up?
Yeah, persons required to make returns of income.
Stop right there. Now, do you see that? So it's not filing a 1040 is not illegal, is it?
No, not for a person.
Okay, see? Now, you see what you just did? Okay, you're going back to making yourself a person or not a person. Now you've got to fight something you can't fight. That's an argument you cannot win. See? Because you're going to say, well, according to, we don't care what it's according to, unless you agree to the definition. Okay, a person is a chocolate bar that has nuts in it. That's a person. I'm the law. I'm the judge. You're arguing with me. That's what I said it was. You can't get over that. Why? Courts are corrupt. Wouldn't it be easier to argue something that you control in an offensive position? Wouldn't that be better? Hello?
Yes.
I think so.
See? Okay, so person's liable. Well, let's find out if we're the person that they're talking about. You might be that person. See what I'm saying? And so rather than say, no, I'm not a person, well, then what are you? I'm a human being. Well, a human being, under the definition that they're using, might be a person. If you read Title I section, well, it could be. I'm just saying. See, what I'm trying to say is our arguments that we're bringing forth, they're not the right ones. Now, what we need to understand is that jurisdiction isn't isn't everything, okay? Jurisdiction isn't everything. It's the only thing, in my opinion. Now, does anybody have any questions? Okay, the guy that just read that, person's liable to... Go ahead.
Yeah, I don't have any questions, but I mean, just from my experience for the past 4 or 5 years, trying to argue that I'm not a person because person's defined as like a officer of the United States or whatever, it just falls on deaf ears. And
okay, so see, so if it falls on deaf ears, why don't you double down on it? You know, I went to the grocery store the other day. They're charging $5 for sour milk. So, buddy, to me that made sense. So I took $20 and got 4 gallons of sour milk. See, that's what we're doing. That doesn't make any sense.
Right.
See? So the reason that does it, they've had that argument so many times they know how to do it. See? They don't know how to handle this. Now, will somebody look up 1040 instructions, and I'm going to show you a pattern that I put together so that you can see how to look outside the box. See, what happens is we're inside the box, just like I asked somebody, if you have a 32-ounce glass and I put 16 ounces of water in a 32-ounce glass, what do you have? Well, there's all kinds of answers. There's all kinds of answers. And some of them, they're going to react differently. I guarantee it, when I tell them it's full, they go crazy. Oh, so there's no air in it? What is it, medically sealed? See, now I've got 2 hours that I can stand there and argue. Because I don't play defense. And since I don't play defense, they can't get their arms around what I'm saying. Does that make sense to you? Okay. Has anybody looked up the 1040 instructions?
I have it.
Wonderful. Thank you for that. And then we get a change of voice. Would you go to page 100? And when you go to page 100, I'm going to show you how you get around filing a 1040. And the IRS is telling you not to fill out a 1040. The IRS actually tells you not to fill it out. But if you do, we'll take it. Now, I'm going to ask a question. If you fill out a 1040 and you owe them money, let's say you fill out the 1040 and you owe them $40,000. Why would you fill it out? Because once you fill it out, now you owe them $40,000. They're going to come after you and tell you that you owe them $40,000. Okay, ma'am, are you on page 100?
Yes, I am, but it's not.
Hold on. That's okay. Then you got the new one. Go to page 105. It's okay. They changed it this year. They've added a few pages in it. On page 105, what's at the top? At the very top. Okay, read the top. What's at the top? Okay.
Disclosure Privacy Act and Paperwork Reduction Act notice.
Okay, now, that page has 3 columns, a left column, a middle column, and a right column. Go to the left column, 3rd paragraph, and don't read it fast. We're not in a hurry. I'm going to have you read it, and I'm going to stop you so we can define stuff that they're trying to tell us so that we know what they're saying. And I'm going to show you the reason I don't file a 1040. Go ahead and start on that paragraph.
Our legal right.
Stop right there. Who's our?
IRS.
Okay, let's read it that way.
IRS's legal right to ask for information.
Stop right there. Hold on. Stop right there. Stop right there. Now, the IRS's legal right. What's the opposite of legal right?
Illegal.
Okay, so they're going to tell us what their legal right is. So if they tell us what their legal right is, everything else, wouldn't that be illegal?
Yes.
Okay, let's start over under the Paper Reduction Act, Privacy Act notice. Start there and the IRS, and then go, and I'll stop you again so that we can tie it all together.
Okay. IRS's legal right to ask for information is Internal Revenue Code sections 6001, 6011, and 6012A, and their regulations. They
Stop
say,
right there. Hold on. Who's there?
the Internal Revenue Code, 6001, 11, and 12.
Right. So their regulations. Now, who's they?
They say that you. That's a good question. IRS, I guess.
No.
No. The Internal Revenue Code sections say.
That's correct. 6001, 6011, 6012A, and the regulations. They've already said that's their legal right. Let's see what their legal right says. Go ahead and pick up from there.
Okay. They say that you must file a return or statement with us.
Right there. Hold on. What must you file?
A return or statement.
Well, wait a minute. Did it say a 1040?
No, it did not.
Okay, so the reason I do not file a 1040 because under the Privacy Act, Paper Reduction Act, and the Internal Revenue Service's own publication, it says I must file a return or a statement. So I type a statement, and I put in a statement, and I say, eat shit and I sign it, I date it, and I put it in my file. Now, where does it tell you to mail it?
Where does it tell me what?
To mail it.
It sure doesn't. Wow.
Okay, now, so the reason but now, if somebody who's in front of a computer, I'm going to show you how ridiculous this becomes. Would you look up file, definition, Black's Law Dictionary? Then we're going to read it, and then you're going to understand why I do it this way. So it says, the IRS's legal right to ask for information is 6001, 6011, 6012A, and the regulations. They say you must file a return or statement. Now, the lady that's reading that, you have to file a 1040 on the IRS, and I say, and the reason you have to file a 1040 because of 6901. Tell me what I just did.
It's not going with what they say is legal. It's illegal.
Okay, so if they tell you have to file a 1040 because of 6433, I object. Why? Because that's illegal. So I'll show you how powerful this statement is.
Wow. Yes.
Would you pick up 75 pounds of cocaine, put it in your car, and drive it for me, and take it and deliver it to a guy near your house? Would you do that?
Why are you asking me to do something illegal?
See? So when they tell you you have to file a 1040 on the ground, 6901, they're asking you to pick up cocaine and take it somewhere. They can't do that. They only have 3 sections. Title 26 is 14,000 pages. It's 8.5 inches thick. Wow. If you want to memorize Title 26, all 14,000 pages, all you have to know is 6001, 6011, 6012, and the regulations. It's about 28 pages. If you learn those 28 pages, you've got Title 26 in its entirety, because everything else is illegal. I don't have to know how to make methamphetamines. Why? Because it's illegal. But I know how to make iced tea. Why? Because it's not. They can't make me learn something that's illegal. So what I'm trying to tell you, the reason I don't file a 1040, because the IRS's own publication under the Paper Reduction Act, Privacy Act, it's the notice, says I got to file a return or a statement. Well, since I don't have any taxes coming out of my check, if I file a return, I'm going to owe money, so I'm going to file a statement. Now, has anybody looked up the word file in definition?
Yeah, let's see if I got what you want. You ready?
Okay. Yeah.
What is a file? A thread, string, or wire upon which writs or other exhibits in courts and offices are fastened or filed for the more safe keeping and ready turning to the same.
Okay, so what they're telling you to do is take your statement and file it. So what I do is I have a foldable thing that folds. I got a string going through it, and I put my eat shit die in it, and I sign it, and I stick it on it, and it's stuck in a box because I've done everything they've asked. Nowhere in that statement does it say, well, put a stamp on it and mail it to us. See, because I'm an idiot, and I admit that, I'm stupid, I'm not going to do unless they tell me to do it. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So, see, what's happening is the guy that read that about the file, can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Okay. Do you file a 1040?
No.
Why?
Because I file a statement.
See, isn't that simple to defend?
See how
simple this is see how simple that becomes to defend?
Yeah.
Oh, no, you file, no, why? Well, because I'm not liable to. There's no law saying that I have to. Well, I'm not a person. Well, I'm not a person, I'm a people. Well, see, when you start all that, pretty soon they've got enough information that they're going to take you down there and they're going to skin you. They're going to skin you. See? All I do is say, according to the Paper Reduction Act, Privacy Act notice that the IRS's own publication says I can't file. I'm not liable. I can't file the 1040. They forbid it. What? They say a return or statement. Now, I do the statement because the word or means, and I have it on, the word or is on my glossary page. The word or means equal. In other words, there's me or my wife. Me or my wife, we're equal. We both sign the same checkbook. We're the same. One child or the other child, they're the same. See? My grandmother or my grandfather, they're both the same. They're both related to me the same way. See? In other words, the word or is a very powerful word in this instance. I have to file a return or statement. And you have to file it with us. So what I've done is I got a box, and I wrote U.S. on it. That's us. I got a string through it, and I stick it in that box. I've done everything I have to do that says in their own publication. Now, does that make any sense? Now, let's back up. If I owe you $40,000, who's got a problem?
I do.
See, that's why they don't get any of my money. They don't get any of mine up front. Then when they say, well, you have to file a 1040, I can't. Well, that's a frivolous argument. Why is it frivolous? I ain't going to tell you. Well, then I ain't filling it out. See, if they haven't got my money, I'll do what I want to do, when I want to do it, as often as I want to do it. I'm not going to argue with somebody who says, it's frivolous. What's frivolous? Don't you worry about it. I said it was, so it was. Ooh, gotcha. See? Now, think about this a minute, the guy that's trying to answer this. If I remember, I'm as dumb as a bag of hammers. If I reach in my bag and hit you with a hammer on the foot, and I mean I crack it hard, would that hurt? All right, so 5-pound sledge. There, you see how simple that is? Because as soon as you say yes, then I'm going to say, okay, then let's ask Bob. Bob will say, I didn't feel it. See, the only way, that's how I protect myself on everything. In other words, why don't you file it? You file 1040? No. Why? Well, because I used to, but then I found out. Why? Because under the Paper Reduction Act, Privacy Act notice in the IRS's own publication says I can't. What? Yeah, it says I have to file a returner statement, and I got to file it. I file every one of them, and I stick string through every one of them, and they're in the box at U.S. at the house. What? That's what it says. Why didn't you mail it? Because you didn't say mail it. I'm doing everything they asked. Well, that's dumb. Yes, it is. It's frivolous. Why would the IRS put something in the mail, frivolous, knowing it was wrong? Wouldn't that be mail fraud? Title 18, Section 242 says that that's 25 to life. So they're down there arguing with me about not following the 1040, and I'm down there asking the judge to put the IRS agent in prison for 25 to life on the grounds. He's using the mail to fraud people. See, it's totally different, is it not?
Yes.
Does that make any sense? See, I'm not going to stand here. I'm not going to argue with them. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use what they say against them. See? Let me ask you a question. The guy that I'm talking to, how many legs does a dog have?
As many as it has.
Okay, how many would that be?
Sometimes it's 4, but a 3-legged dog only has 3.
Okay, now, wonder if I worked with several dogs, and they only had 2.
Oh.
See the problem? No, it doesn't matter. The problem was, what you should have said, should the answer have been? I don't know. What is a dog? What's the definition of a dog? We're not as soon as we're on the same page, I used to have these guys that used to steal from the company, them dogs. So we call them dogs. Okay? Okay? There's a football team back in my home state. That's the Big City Dogs. Well, guess what? How many legs does that dog have? Well, there's 22 on the team. Each has 2. There's 44. So that dog's... Yeah. No, I meant... See, in other words, unless you understand it, you're making an answer. Now I can build my next bunch of questions against you. See, the questions that they ask you, they're not about taxes. What they do is they set you up. I call it the red herring. They're going to ask you 6 or 7 questions. Then they're going to see where you're at. They got rule books. If you're a half full guy, don't ask any half empty questions or if he's a half empty guy. See, this is where all of this goes, and the reason it goes that way because it's a mental thing. If they can get you to believe what you're doing is wrong, even if it's not wrong, Hitler said, lie to the people long enough and they'll believe it. Now, when you tell somebody that I don't follow 1040, they're going to look at you like a calf at a new gate. You don't what? You have to. Okay, why? Well, the law says. then we're going to say, the law doesn't say that. There's no place in the law that says it. What I do is I say, well, maybe the law says I do, but the IRS's Paper Reduction Act, Privacy Act notice in their own publication says I have to file a return or a statement. I choose to do a statement. Now, how do you argue with that? Even if you wanted to, how do you argue with that? Are you still with me?
Yes.
Okay. How do you argue with that?
You can't.
Okay. See, therein lies the problem. The arguments that we have. Now, let me ask you a question. Sir, are you married?
No.
All right. Have you ever been married?
Yes.
Okay. When you were married, if you walked home and walked in the house and your wife was cheating on you, would you recognize it?
Would I recognize it? Yes.
In other words, your wife, okay then, now that you said that, you screwed yourself, what would she be doing?
Eating my lunch.
Hello?
Eating my lunch.
Okay. See, now you see what you had to do. Did you see that changed the whole story, didn't it?
Right.
See? If I walked in on my wife and she was cheating, I mean, would I recognize it? I don't know if I would. What in the world's cheating? Well, eating your lunch. Yeah, I would notice that. See? Well, how about, see? Well, drinking your drink. I don't know if I'd recognize that because I wouldn't know it was mine. See, in other words, you see how I'm always on offense? Does that make sense? That protects me every single time. See, instead of going out saying, well, yeah, I'd recognize it, what would she be doing? Oh, boy. Now, Guy, I'm going to give you an opportunity here. There's $500,000 at stake. I'm going to give you the opportunity. You get to pick first. You pick the most, whatever has the most. When you pick it, if you pick it right, you get the $500,000. Now, 30 or 3, which one's the most? Okay, and if you're silent, okay, it depends. Really? So you're telling me you don't know the difference between 30 and 3. Which one's the most? There's $500,000 at stake.
Well, 30 bottles or 30 cases of bottles or 40 cases of bottles.
Okay, just 30. 30 spots or 3 spots? Spots are the same size.
Well, one would say 30 spots.
Okay, perfect. We're playing poker. An ace has 1 spot on it. I have 3 aces, and you have 3 10s. That would be 30 spots.
The question is, what's the game?
See? You see? Because what would have happened if you would have said 3? What would I have said? See, what would I have said if you would have said 3?
We're playing slots?
No, I'd have said, what are you nuts? 30 is way more than 3. See,
That's
you
right.
Can't win. See, you can't win with these people. So you have to say, I don't know, what's the game we're playing? Now, once I show my hand, well, we're playing poker, then I'll take the 3. Because 3 aces is more than 30 or 3 10s. But if we're playing just spots, 30 is more than 3. See, in other words, that's why everything I do has to be defined. I'm trying to show you that. How, do you follow 1040? No. Why? Well, because. Because why? Well, there's no law. Well, I'll show you the law. I showed it to you. See? Well, any person. Well, I'm not a person. Now, you got to understand something. You're in court. There's 12 jurors. You're going to jail. You're going to stand there and tell the judge, I'm not a person. Do you realize how stupid that sounds? You got 12 jurors that are persons. They're looking at you thinking, this guy's pulling something over I'm going to take that and I'm going to say, well, the reason I don't file one because the IRS said not to. Which one is easier to pass to? See? Doesn't that make sense?
Yes.
See? Now, when I asked you if you were married, you said no. Well, when you were married, you walked in the house, would you recognize your wife cheating? You said, yeah, she'd be eating my lunch. Do you see how that was slick? Did you see that? Well, yeah, because you realized you had stumbled. And you see, that's where the problem comes. We have to understand that. So if anybody has you got the email tonight to be on the call, I think Ed's got my glossary page on there. If he doesn't, just get a hold of him or me or something, and we'll send you. Then you can understand when you start to read the word file. Did you know what it was before tonight?
No, not in that sense, no.
Well, that's the sense we're using. See? And that's what they're doing. See?
It could be something I sharpen a knife with.
That's exactly right. See, but until you have it defined, how do you know what it is?
I don't.
That's exactly right. So, did you follow 1040? No. Why? Well, because there's no law that says I do. They're going to start running off at the mouth. And me? Well, the reason I don't, because under the Paper Reduction Act and the Privacy Act, notice that the IRS put in their own publication forbids me from it. I just shut up. What do you think their next question is? They can't let that out. They can't let me say that and not come back with something. Because if they do, then it's fact. What are they going to come back and say? No, it doesn't. Well, here, let me read it to you. Then I read it to you. This is in their 1040 instruction booklet, page 100, page 105, depending on the year. It says this. See, I have to file a return or statement. But a return is a CT1, a 941, a 940, a 942, a 1041, a 1040, a 1040A, a 1040 NR. In other words, I got them all listed here on my sheet. So there's like 35 or 38 different returns. It doesn't tell me which return. So I just do the statement because I know what that means. See how simple this becomes? I can now defend the undefendable.
What's the question they're going to ask you after you tell them you file a statement?
You file a statement? Why? Well, let me show you. And I read it to them. See? They're going to say, well, you didn't, well, we didn't get it. You didn't say to mail it. It says to file it. What? Yeah, here, let me read your file list. Then I read what file is. See, everything. What do you mean? Well, that ain't what we meant. Then why did you put it? So, in other words, you're putting falsities in a book, mailing it to everybody in America. Your Honor, that's mail fraud. According to Title 18, 241 and 242, that's 25 to life. That IRS agent in a court of law has just perjured himself, and he told you he's breaking the law. Can he lie? Or, in other words, is this a court of law or is it a court of only to one side? See, everything I need is on that page right there. Doesn't that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
See, when I got indicted, that's what I used. That was one of the things I used. I used a couple of other things too. But what they said was, well, you have to file one. The law says you do. Well, the law might say I do, but if the law says I do and your publication says I can't, that's, hold on. That would be vague. According to the vagueness doctrine, which is right here, you have to rule in my favor. You can't even listen to them. So under the vagueness doctrine, it says if the government writes something and it's vague, the court has to rule in the citizen's favor 100% of the time. See that?
What's the name of that act again?
It's not an act.
I'm sorry,
The vagueness. It's the vagueness doctrine. I have it if you need it. Let me know if you need it, but you can look it up, because anything you look up is, you'll understand it better. That's great. I have no problem with that. Does that make sense? See, I'm not going to stand here and argue with them on an argument. Okay, the guy that was just talking to me, do you have a minute? Can I ask you a quick question?
Only got a minute.
The guy that asked me, well, that's either one of you. It doesn't matter. Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Okay. Have you ever flown before, or never, or you never have?
Yes, I've flown before.
Okay. Did your arms get tired? How'd you get off the ground? Wait a minute. Did your arms get tired? How'd you get off the ground?
Well, I was actually flying when I was sleeping.
But you see what you had to do? See, in other words, have you ever flown? I don't know. Define what you mean by flown. Well, you know. No, I don't know. See, that's how I do everything. I assume nothing. And the reason for it is, as soon as I did that, you knew you stepped in it, didn't you?
See,
huh?
Yep, I was in a trap. That's essentially what this is
now,
all about.
The guy that just said that about the trap, can I ask you a question? And I'm going to show you how this works. Can I ask you a question?
Go ahead.
Okay. Are you married?
No.
Have you ever been married?
No.
Have you ever had a girlfriend?
No.
Okay. Have you ever had a relationship with a woman?
No.
Have you ever had a relationship with a man?
No.
I don't care. See what I'm trying to do, and that's fine. See? All right. Okay, here's the hard part of this. I did all that now. I've got all that out there so I could say this. Are you a virgin?
No.
What is a virgin?
Really? Because here, okay, the virgin is the first time. So you've flown a 747. You've skydived. You've been in Afghanistan. You fought in the war. So you have see what I was trying to do. I'm trying to get your mind running down the wrong path, so that and that's what they do. That's why we have to be careful. Does that make sense? See? Look up the word virgin in the dictionary. It's your first time. So, see? So, have you ever driven a NASCAR car? Have you ever driven a NASCAR car at 200 miles an hour on a 30-degree bank in a NASCAR? Have you?
I don't
okay, by your silence. Do you see the problem? See, the reason I do that is to set it up that way so that it confuses you, but that's what they're doing to us. We have to be careful with that. And that's how I do everything. I try my best to give you a different way to think of this stuff so that when it comes out, see, now, let's go back. I just saw this by talking to you. Let's go back to when we had the cop on the stand. We asked him, you're in law enforcement. He said, well, yeah. I said, okay, if you pulled me over and I had a case of AK-47s in the back of my truck, and I had 70,000 rounds of ammunition for the AK-47, what would you do? He said, I'd confiscate them. I said, why? So you don't obey the law, because the Second Amendment, those aren't guns. It says right here, I have a right to keep and bear arms. Wouldn't that be an arm? And the prosecutor said, he's not an attorney. What I'm saying is, you see, I did the same thing to them. And what this does is it gives you a different perspective. Does that help at all?
It does.
But I hope I didn't anger you, because that's not what it's for, okay? Does anybody have a question, an IRS question? That's really my expertise. Or any other question that I can try my best. I tried to throw in some other things that were jurisdictional, because I've had a lot of calls this week or last week wanting to know how to handle some other things other than just the taxes. But I have a process for property taxes that's real successful, providing you follow you follow the instructions.
15 minutes, sir.
Okay, so we have 15 minutes. So, does anybody have any questions that I can address for you?
Yeah, I've got a question, Kerry.
I have a question about property tax.
Okay. Let the other guy. Yeah, the other guy was first, so let him talk first. And then go ahead. Go ahead. Yeah, no problem. Go ahead.
This is Tim from Wisconsin. How you doing tonight?
I'm wonderful. I'm really, really good.
Great. I was wondering if you wouldn't mind going over how you obtained the 2853C letter.
It's not. There's no such thing as a 2853 sub letter.
Was it a 2358?
Yes, it was.
Okay.
What I did. Okay, I'm going to just tell you how I did mine. Okay. What I do is I go to the tax court. I get a court order, and I get those all the time. Then I do an ROE, a revocation. Now that I have the revocation, with the revocation, I get a 288C saying that I'm not liable. Then by that, then I go in and then I ask for it. It's a process that I've come up with that works more times than it doesn't. Now, do you have the 2358C letter?
I do not know.
Okay. Well, that's how I did it.
Okay.
So it's a process that I have put together. And it's like everything else. I sit down and I think about something. Say that one more time.
Maybe get with you later and work on that?
That'll be fine. That will be fine. All right, the other guy, would you ask your question now?
Yeah. For property tax, I've heard that, if you can change, like, for example, they call the property real estate, which would be like a commercial kind of activity, but would you be able to change it to private property and it wouldn't be taxable?
Okay,
is there any
you
way
got to understand something. Okay, you have to understand what they're doing, okay? Number one, what they're doing is, have you ever heard of land taxes?
No.
Okay, there's no such thing as land taxes. So if you look up the word property in Black's Law Dictionary and then look up eminent domain, those two define what property is. Property is something you cannot own. You can only rent it. That's why your vehicle, your car, your truck, whatever it's property, so that you have to buy tags and they can tell you what to do with it. It becomes property. Now, the other problem that you have is you got to figure out what they're doing and how they're doing it. It's no one thing. But in Texas, we have the Homestead Act. They'll ask you, do you want to lower your property tax? Well, of course. We're here to fill out the Homestead Act. By doing so, you change what your property becomes. It's just like this. I've talked to a lot of people this week, and a lot of people say, well, I have an LLC. Well, why do you have an LLC? Well, it's a limited liability corporation. I know, but why do you have it? Well, I do that so I have a smaller tax burden. So you're asking the government to give you a tax break, and now you want to stick it to them without paying taxes. You're setting yourself up for trouble. Now, what I do is, if anybody's in front of a computer, if you let me know, I'm going to show you how I do it. Okay? Let me show you how I do it. I make it real simple, and it creates such a stink. Now, is somebody in front of a computer? Because if I tell you, it says you don't. Okay, go to Title 31, Section 3124, and read that. And then, after you're done reading that, I need somebody to look up Title 18. That's Crimes and Criminal Procedures. Section 8. We're going to run through this real quick because we're running out of time. And then you'll see
18
it.
what?
18.8. Hey, the guy that would look up 3124, would you read that real quick?
Exemption from taxation.
Okay, now stop right there. Would you like to know what's exempt from taxation? Again, we're going to use the law. Would you like to know what the law says is exempt from taxation?
Certainly.
Then let's read it.
Stocks and obligations of the United States government are exempt from taxation by a state or political subdivision of a state. The exemption applies to each form of taxation that would require the obligation, the interest on the obligation, or both, to be considered in computing tax exempt.
That's fine. Don't worry about the rest of it. So stocks and obligations of the federal government are exempt from a state or a political subdivision of a state. So
you mean like a Federal Reserve note?
Nope, that's not what I mean. I don't mean anything like that. What you're doing is you're guessing. We're not going to guess. I don't guess. So what we're going to do is we're going to now read Title 18, Section 8. That's crimes and criminal procedure. Anything under this Title 18 that you violate is a felony. Who's looking up 18, Section 8?
I am.
Okay, would you read that for me?
As soon as obligation or other security of the United States defined. The term obligation.
Wait a minute, hold on. Let's define it according to the law. Go ahead.
The term obligation or other security of the United States includes all bonds, certificates of indebtedness, national bank currency, Federal Reserve notes, Federal Reserve bank notes, coupons, United States notes, Treasury notes, gold certificates, silver certificates, fractional notes, certificates of deposit, bills, checks, or drafts for money drawn by or upon authorized officers of the United States.
Okay,
Stamps and other representative.
Okay, don't worry about that. That's just, okay, now, the question is, when you get your property, and I'm using figures that's easy for math, the property is $100,000. The improvements is $100,000. The taxable property is $200,000. Here's the problem. That $200,000, what is it figured in?
Obligations or other securities of the United States.
That's a felony. It can't be done. So what I have done is I have a form that I've made that I send to them. Here's where the problem comes. You have a short window. When you get your property tax bill in the mail, it's not a bill, it's a statement. During that statement, there's no dollar signs on it. You have 30 days to do it. It comes every year. You know it's coming. As soon as I get it, I immediately send out my form. They get the form. If they do not answer it, I default them. I then take my default, file it at the courthouse, and mail it as payment, and file a lawsuit immediately in the state, on the county, on the grounds. I'm doing everything that I can. So, the word form has a very unique, let's do this. Would you look up the word form in Black's Law Dictionary so you can see what they're doing to us? They bastardized their language. So look up the word form, definition, Black's Law Dictionary. Let's read it, and then you'll understand what I've done and how I've done it. That way, when you hit them, you can't lollygag and stand back and say, well, I'm going to wait for a while. Maybe they won't do nothing. They do it every year. Every year you get the same thing. You have to be prepared. You have to get ready. When you get it, you don't wait. When I get mine in the mail, that same day it goes out because it comes every year, and it's the same thing every year. Would you read the word form in Black's Law Dictionary and listen to what it says?
A model or skeleton of an instrument to be used in a judicial proceeding.
Hold on. It's okay. What is a form?
It's a model or skeleton of an instrument.
Okay, so it's an instrument, right?
Yeah.
See, in other words, you thought it was a form. It's a model or a skeleton of an instrument. So a form and an instrument is exactly the same thing of an instrument to be used in a court of law or a judicial proceeding. So look up the word instrument, Black's Law Dictionary, so we can see what they're using on us. If we don't know what they're using, we have no defense. See, it's like if I slug you in the face, would it hurt? You're going to say, well, yeah. No, there you go. This is what I'm trying to show you here. You're getting something in the mail, and you don't know what it is, and so what we're doing is we're answering it improper. See what I'm saying? I asked you, what's a dog? Well, they got 3 legs or 4 legs. Well, I got the. See, in other words, if you don't know what it is we're dealing with, you can't deal with it because they bastardize their language. They're using a special language that has special words, that have special definitions, so that you are punching in a dark room and you don't know what you're punching. Now, let's read what an instrument is.
A written document, a formal or legal document in writing, such as a contract, deed, will, bond, or lease.
Okay, stop right there. So you're getting a lease. When you get your property tax. See what you didn't know that, did you? Now you do. So how do you combat that? We come back with the same thing. You come back with the same thing, and that's what I do right there. I give them a form. If they don't answer the form, then I go through and I fault it. Then I default it. Once I fault it with the right to cure and they don't cure it, then they've admitted it. Here's what they've admitted. I list everything because I'm writing the contract. Here's my contract that you agreed to. I put a contract. I file it in the court and I sue them immediately under the contract they agreed to. Doesn't that make sense?
Yes.
Now, once I do that, the last several we did, they won't answer the question. What they've done is we asked them to have it put in suspended animation until they answer the question. All we want to do is know what species, S-P-E-C-I-E, what species they will accept as payment since they can't use Federal Reserve notes. I know we're going over here a little bit, but look up the word species, S-P-E-C-I-E, definition, Black's Law, and you'll see. Go ahead.
S-P-E-C-I-E.
Yes. Definition, Black's Law. So, if I ask you a question, if I go to a restaurant and say I want 2 eggs and they bring me 2 pieces of bacon, bacon's good, but that's not what I asked for. See? Go ahead.
You ready?
Yes.
Coin of the precious metals of a certain weight and fineness and bearing the stamp of the government denoting its value as currency.
Now, do you see what I asked them? What species will you accept as payment for the property tax that you said I owed? Specie is money. There isn't any. Since there's no money, they're not asking for money. They're asking for what? Something that's illegal, something that's a...
They want obligations.
They can't take those for... You can't pay an obligation with an obligation. So what I do... But you remember, when you get your property tax bill, it's going to say, don't pay this. This is a statement. Do not pay it. That's when I attack. The day I get my statement, I immediately, right then, send out my form telling them, if you don't answer this, this is what you agreed to. Here's your new contract right here. And that's what I do. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
See? How do we this form?
Right, because see, you didn't know what form was. Oh, I thought I did. I don't care what you thought. This ain't about what you think or what you don't think. This is not about being a nice guy or not a nice guy. This is about what the law says. Because if you don't pay your property tax, they're going to take you to court, and the judge is going to give them your property. They're going to take your property through the court system. So apparently there's a law somewhere. I need to know the law before I get there. I want to pay my property tax lawfully, legitimately, quickly, and judiciously. I have a right to do that, and that's how I set them up. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I have a question.
Okay, that's how I do it. So again, if you're interested in it, you get with Ed. We'll talk one-on-one just so I can because you can't wait. This is not something you wait, because once that statement becomes the bill, you can still win with it, but you're in for a long haul. And they got more money than you do.
I got a quick question.
But there's sure.
Once you're done, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, go ahead. You said you had a question. Go on.
I know you have recordings. Is there any way that I can get a copy of this recording? You've got some good information in here that I've learned.
Yeah. If you look at the email you got, it's on. You just go in there and put in the different number and the same code, and it pops right up. Or you go on the Texas Republic website and find the date, and it's right there.
Oh, Texas Republic. Okay. Thank you.
You mentioned earlier.
No, the Republic of Texas. Sorry.
Oh, the Republic.
Yes. No. Okay. That other guy had another question. What was it?
You mentioned earlier what I believe was the vagueness doctrine.
I did mention that.
Okay, that's defined. It starts out as a constitutional rule that requires criminal laws to state explicitly and definitely what conduct is punishable. Am I in the right place?
I would assume so. I have it somewhere. That sounds very simple, very right. So see, here's what people say. Well, I think it means. I don't care what you think. See, when I walked up to the lady on the corner, and I thought she wanted me to pants her. And when I did, she about beat me to death with a hammer. Well, that ain't what she. See, it don't matter what I think. What does the law say? That's what I use on them, because they're having a much more difficult time when the law says red and they're saying green, and the judge says, "Well, I said green when I am the law. I can then appeal what he said, because what he said was that he cannot legislate from the bench. If he tries to legislate from the bench, I appeal it on the grounds he's legislating from the bench. They won't rule against it. And if they do, keep pushing it up, because a judge is there to do just that. It's like a referee on a football field. He can't blow the whistle when one guy passes it too far, and the other guy, well, we're going to penalize you because you threw the ball too far. You got too good of an arm. They're not going to do that. They're going to rule what the law says, but we have to take the corruption away from them. We can't go up there and say, I'm a non-resident alien. I'm a sovereign. I'm not a person. I'm a person with one green eye and one blue eye. That has nothing to do with it. That's the problem. We've given them all this stuff for all these years. When we go there with one focus in mind. Here's what the law said. This is where they broke it. What are you going to do about it? And the judge, darn near, he rules in our favor an awful lot.
Time's up, Jerry.
Well, I appreciate everybody here tonight being here. Thank you for being here. If you want to get a hold of Ed or me, there's an email address to get a hold of Ed, and he'll pass it on to me if you can't answer it. Thank you for being here.
Our next call will be February the 23rd.
Okay, February the 23rd. It'll be the same call-in numbers.
And the fellow that wanted a copy of this, tell him, if you'll email me, I'll tell you how to get it.
There you go. Perfect. Oh, my pleasure.
So we thank you.